All right, please accept. Okay, so hello everyone. Welcome to Creating Inclusive Internet Communities on Tambayan 404 case study by Richard Parayno. The Philippines has one of the strongest tech community ecosystems here, but I feel like it's not talked about enough, which is why today we have here one of the leading community builders in this space. So Richard is a multidisciplinary designer, product consultant, and community builder with over 2 years of experience. Richard is a product designer for Makisu and was previously a PM at Senti AI and operations manager at Anya Design Lab. He's currently pursuing an MS in HCI at Paris, London, Universitat Salzburg, and FH Salzburg in Salzburg, Austria. You can learn more about his work through LinkedIn or at his personal website at parayno.dev. Thank you.
Okay, sige. I'll be sharing my screen in a bit. All right, so hopefully you can see my screen. I'll just fix everything here. Okay, so hello, good afternoon to everyone in the Philippines, and good morning to me because I just woke up a few minutes ago. Since, as Bianca mentioned, I'm not in the Philippines right now. I am currently based in Austria. So yeah, today we have a special presentation for the participants of the Develop Camp called Creating Inclusive Internet Communities, the T404 Experience. So just a quick overview of the topics. We'll be going through why and how we started Tambayan 404, the importance of the rules and codes of conducts, how we grew the community, some tips from our end regarding that, some of our tips and experiences with regards to handling conflict and how you can create space for difficult topics in your community, and a few closing remarks and a little bonus point at the end of the presentation related to community building. So yeah, this is going to be a really quick talk because the slides that I made is really just a guide for the whole conversation. So I was hoping if you had any questions for me regarding anything on the slides or regarding anything about community building, please feel free to send them in and we can discuss them during my time slot. Right, so yeah, before we formally jump into the topic of community building, I just wanted to do a quick introduction for myself. So hello, my name is Richard Parayno. I'm currently level 24 in life. My current server is EU Central 1, and my favorite game genres are FPS, racing, simulation, and anything VR, since those are my main interests right now. And in real life, I work as a product designer for Makisu, so I'm working remotely here from Austria. And I also study under the MSc Human-Computer Interaction program of the University of Salzburg and the Salzburg University of Applied Sciences, or FH Salzburg. Yes, so I'm also studying, I'm also a full-time student on the side, aside from working as a product designer at Makisu. Okay, so now we're just going to jump right in. This is just a quick meme that we made among the admins of Tambayan 404 of how exactly the community started. So this the joke between us three admins is that the org started because Sam wanted to set up a Manila CSS online meetup, and then it gradually turned into, oh, I don't want to use Facebook anymore for my group chats. I want to do a Facebook detox. Let's make a Discord group chat instead. And then it quickly snowballed into, oh, how about let's make a Discord, a community on Discord. Then here we are now. Here we are now. We have Tambayan 404. Based on the server count, it has 996 members after 1 year, and yeah, we're doing relatively okay. Okay, so yeah, just some additional context. So that meme that we made, even though it was supposed to be just like a funny, it's a very, very generalized oversimplification of what actually happened. So here are my two other co-admins, Chi and Sam. And during the height of the pandemic in the Philippines around May 2020, we're starting to feel burned out with the current state of the tech industry and the local tech community. So if you can recall, during May 2020, this was the time when we were all freshly turned into fully remote workers, and the tech industry was still trying to adapt and understand how to come into terms with the fact that, oh, we're going to be doing all of our work fully remotely now. And as well as the tech community, where a lot of tech communities actually went on hiatus during that time, because because of the pandemic. A few communities tried organizing events, but it was short-lived because it's hard to keep up with the same cadence, with the same quality of events that you would expect from people in the local tech community, considering the whole situation at the time, right? Like, our thesis back then was that no one wanted to attend talks about design, about career, about technology, since there was a pandemic happening. And yeah, that's for us three, being involved in several different communities, being involved in the Philippine Web Designers Organization, being involved in with UXPH, with Manila CSS. Yun yung pinaka pain point that we were personally experiencing. And because of that, in our discussions, we decided, or rather we talked about what if there was a space where we could hang out with fellow tech people without focusing too much on work, without focusing too much on the hustle, or without focusing too much on how we used to do it back then, where community events were mainly focused on technical events. I mean, technical topics, career topics, and the actual hanging out with community members happens after the in-person meetup. So we wanted to take the stuff that worked in-person events before, which is, or rather, the stuff that was enjoyable, in the stuff that worked in the pre-COVID times, which is hanging out with fellow tech people. And maybe back then we thought maybe this would work as an online community. And yeah, with us having defined what we wanted to do, where we wanted to position ourselves, these are the steps that we took to establish the community. Right. So the first thing that we did was to establish presence in the tools that our prospective community members were most likely to be on. So initially, we didn't want to create a Facebook page, and we only wanted to have a Twitter and a Discord. However, after we discussed amongst ourselves, it was important to also create a Facebook page, because the fact of the matter is, as much as we want to reduce our reliance on Facebook and all that stuff, the reality is a big chunk of the tech community is still on Facebook, and it's still the most effective way to reach people in the Philippines, to spread the word about a certain community. And yeah, so we made a Facebook page, we made a Twitter account, and then of course we set up the Discord server. So the screenshot of the Discord server is, or rather, that screenshot that you can see on the right side, it's from our Discord server. It's from our welcome page in the server, essentially. It's gone through several iterations. So it was originally posted around 25th of May back in 2020, and the messages there have gone through so many iterations already, and yeah, we basically iterated a lot on what we did. But the most important thing that we did during the start is to decide on where the community will be, what basically yung presence namin as an organization. So these are the strategies that that a more traditional a more traditional organization in the tech community would take, right? So I guess in short, no, if you want to start a new community, you should use the channels that that the people you want to reach are on. So if it's Facebook, unfortunately, you have to use Facebook, right? Okay, next. Okay, so the next part that we did, once we have identified the segments that we want to reach, the type of people that we want to invite to the server, the tools that we'll be using, and the what do you call it? The channels where we can be found. We established our the expectation, rules, and codes of conduct of the organization. And this is one of the most important things that you could do if you want to create an inclusive community, especially one that's online. And I would even argue that you shouldn't create an online community in the first place if you don't take the time to write down your rules, to write down your code of conduct. And in the case of Tambayan 404, this entire rule set was initially made in like 30 minutes to an hour. The rules were simple. No discrimination, walang bastusan, stay on topic, stay safe for work, no excessive self-promotion. And those were just the initial set of rules. We added other rules over time depending on how the community was operating. Like this rule about no doxing, leaking, sharing, or oversharing or of personal information, it was only added just a few months ago. I think 4 or 5 months ago. Yeah, it was pretty. It's a pretty recent rule in our community. And the point that I want to make here is that rules can be made quickly, easily at the start, and you can always iterate on the rules. You could always improve the rules. You could always change the rules over time, depending on how your organization is, or rather, how your community is running. Because the thing about communities is that it's not a fixed entity. It's something that evolves over time, depending on who is in the in the community. Sorry, I keep saying organization. My God. Okay. So yeah, with rules, with the expectations and the codes of conduct, these are essential things that you need to build out your community. These are the things that will let you set the mood for the server. It will tell people how they should act in a given space, because communities, especially internet communities, are shared spaces, and it is inevitable that people will try to break the rules, or they will do something that's distasteful. They will do something that may be perceived as offensive. And the importance of the rules and the codes of conduct is that these are the things that will help you navigate these issues. And yeah, in short, the rules, the expectations, and the codes of conducts, these are your codified. This is a codified representation of your community's philosophies, values, and principles. So it's very important to establish this right at the start. And then, aside from those, if you are starting a new community, it is very important for you to initiate conversations. This is my main annoyance whenever I join a new internet community. in Discord, for example. Because how can you expect to grow your community if if the people who made the community in the first place do not initiate the conversations, do not if they do not make an effort to converse with the people, especially if you're trying to start something new, if you're trying to start something um, in a specific topic, for example. Because what happens is if you want to create a community, and you're not initiating the conversations, you're just taking up space on on a specific person's Discord sidebar. If you don't start the if you don't initiate conversations, you're not providing value to other people, and at some point your community will grow enough for the conversations to happen by themselves, right? But in the screenshots that I shared there, the context was we had less than, I think, less than 100, like probably 20 to 50 members at the time, even less, right? So it's very important if you're starting a new community to start the conversations by yourself. We were very active. Me, Sam, and she, we were very active at the start. We we established a lot of the conversations, and basically we led by example, essentially, because we were showing that we were as invested in this community as that we were invested in this community, essentially. And yeah, it's always a good idea to initiate conversations, especially if you start a new community. Because if one of your goals is to increase engagement, to increase the number of users in your community, it will never people won't recommend the server if there are no conversations happening at all in the server. So the responsibility is on you as the person who started the community. All right. All right, next. So to sum up everything that we did, from the tools, from the rules, and all of that fancy stuff, the main advice that we give people is to just do it. To not track vanity metrics. Don't focus on the number of people in the community. Don't focus on the number of messages sent. Don't focus on kung gaano kaingay yung isang server. What we suggest is to focus on providing value, focus on providing a space for conversation, because if you're building a community, you're usually in it for the long term, or at least a year, or maybe not even a year, just something that can be considered long term, essentially. And if you're building a community, you need to remember that you are building a community, and you're not just making an item. You're not just doing this for the sake of something on your CV, right? Because if you wanted to create a community, if you wanted to create a quality community, if you wanted to create something that will last, something that will provide value to everyone, something that will provide impact for a long time, or rather at least provide impact to the people that you want to reach, just do it, essentially. However, this is with the catch that, of course, it is a thing that people start in the community to gain experience for their professional work. There's nothing wrong with that. But once you go into the realm of building your own community, like an actual community, not just a Discord server, then that's when you need to be more responsible with how you approach things. Because think of it as you not wanting to waste other people's time, essentially. Because let's say if you're building a community and you're parang half-hearted ka, and you're just doing it just so that you have something on your CV, then what about the people who are invested in your community? Thus, after a few months, let's say 1 year, tapos na yung side project mo, or you treated it as a side project na after 1 year, hindi mo napapansinin ulit. Kawawa naman yung mga nag-invest ng time and energy to participate in your community. All right. All right, now let's quickly talk about the importance of rules and codes of conduct. So, as mentioned earlier, rules and codes of conduct help establish expected behavior from your community members. This is a codified representation of your community's values, principles, and philosophies. So, more often than not, the rules and the code of conduct come directly from the people who started the organization. If you don't tolerate, if the founding people do not personally tolerate racism, discrimination, hate, and whatever, then you should make that clear in the rules, right? But you need to also know what kind of server or what kind of community you want to build. If you want to build a community that has a diverse set of people, that has a diverse set of opinions, even if some of these people have opposing viewpoints from your own, like in terms of politics or religion, then you also need to design your rules in such a way that they will be able to participate in the space safely, and that they will be able to foster discussion with these other people without the server devolving into essentially a Call of Duty lobby on the internet, right? Na parang nag-aaway-away lang kayo, just raising expletives, nothing is happening. Nothing productive is happening anyway. So yeah, it's okay to have your own politics in the rules. It's okay to have your own what do you call this? Have your own perspectives on certain topics. But if you want an open space, make sure to be open to other people as well, right? But then again, this is your decision as the community leader if you want to tolerate that kind of discussion, right? If you're not in the headspace to discuss politics, or if you don't want politics to be discussed at all in your server, that's totally fine. Just define it in the rules, because the thing is about topics like politics and religion, people will talk about it at one point or another in a server, right? So it's important you clearly define the rules, you clearly define the channels where people can talk about certain things, and essentially be clear with how you enforce the rules, essentially. And yeah, the thing about these rules and regulations and codes of conduct is that they're best built over time along with your community members. And I added in parentheses, participatory, not expert mindset, because when you think about it, because when you think about it, if you're building a community, the users are not you. You are not the main user. The main user of your community are your community members. So it only makes sense to approach things in a participatory or democratic way, and not just looking at everything with an expert mindset. Although there are some instances where you should put your foot down and where you should say that, no, we should do this. But for the vast majority of instances, whenever it comes to community building, having a open participatory mindset is always helpful for making sure that your community is the best that it can be, and that your community stays healthy and attracts people who are personally invested in the community. Kasi it is my personal opinion that um, a community is best when there is a shared sense of ownership over the rules of the rules of the community, over the if they feel that their opinions have weight in the server. Essentially, it's always a good thing to have in a community. But yun nga, there are instances where you have to employ that expert mindset. And the most important thing is that it is okay to not nail it the first time. What's important is that you have it before starting anything, especially in the context of communities, internet communities, where anyone can join. And usually these people are anonymous, right? And as we know, being anonymous gives people the perspective that they can say anything they want, right? Which is why establishing these rules as early as possible is very, very important. But don't overthink it. It's okay to not nail it the first time. Like the rule set for, or rather the rules and regulations for Tambayan 404, it's just, we made it in like 30 minutes, and we based it off of the things that we want to see and don't see in the server. Like, stay safe for work, kasi we've seen how Discord servers with NSFW content operate. Like, it's not it's bad. Not fun. Stay on topic, walang bastusan, which is it is surprising that we have to explicitly state that now in this day and age, 2021. We have to explicitly say na walang bastusan or discrimination, but it is what it is. And yeah, these are things that, yun nga, if you didn't state in the start, you won't have any precedent to kick someone out of the server if they were tawag dito, if they're being bad actors in a server. If you don't have rules, then baka magmukha pa kayong masama kasi on the spot kayo gumagawa ng rules. So that's why it's important as well. It on a pragmatic perspective, it protects the admins as well from decision making, right? And in terms of growing the community, so for Tambayan 404, we were playing around the idea that, oh, we have a bunch of intelligent people in the community. We have a bunch of senior level people, or people who have something to say about a specific topic, or people who are skilled or who are knowledgeable in a certain topic but don't get the opportunity to talk in the regular tech community setting, or may specific interest sila na doesn't really fall under technology, but they really want to talk about it, right? So we had the idea in Tambayan for na, why not give the opportunity for the community to help shape the community by letting them directly contribute and provide value to other people through events and stuff. So we initially started with the water cooler session na concept, which is your standard, tech event concept, but we kind of flipped it over its head, where people are allowed to talk about whatever they want as long as there's interest. So as you can see in the example over on the right side, on the photo on the right, we had a water cooler session on taxation, like how to file your taxes, what to do if you are a freelancer, how do you declare your taxes, right? So, and this all happened because apparently we had a member in the community who was a small business owner, does their own taxes, and their mom was a tax consultant for a bunch of different companies. And he was able to convince his mom to go on the Discord with him to share some insights on taxation, right? And he also shared his insights in um, in taxation for like small businesses, for example. Even to the point na nagbibigay ng tips on which RDO sa BIR yung mabilis magtrabaho or something like that, right? And then we also had like a TCP, which is a Tambayan community podcast, which essentially same concept as the water cooler session, but less structured and more free form sa topics, right? And usually, ang content ng TCP are things that are being discussed at length in the community. Like one of the very first TCP episodes was about salary yata, yes, salary ranges or something about negotiating for salaries, right? And this was the podcast happened because it was career related, and it happened because it was a very very long discussion on the Discord. As in, it took hours, the discussion talaga siya, almost the whole day. And then we thought about, why not turn this into a podcast where it's going to be an open forum session na anyone can give their insights, anyone can participate, anyone can lead the conversations, or rather kami pala yung nag-lead ng conversations for the interest of time. And ang strategy that we're doing in Tambayan 404 is we leverage our community's experts and interests. Because when you think about it, the best way to get people to be more invested in a community is to let them participate in the process directly by themselves, right? And it's always nice to let people who have a genuine desire to share knowledge about a certain topic, and then see them share this knowledge to other people by letting them lead a talk or something. Parang it's also personal development on their part, and we want to be we want to provide people an avenue for them to talk about things that they might not be able to talk about in their day job, for example. Right? Like, how often are you able to have a good discussion on taxation, diba? Or how often are you able to get a good discussion on company culture or anything career related, right? So yun yung tip ko in growing the community. Leverage your community's experts and interests, because that is the best way to grow a community, in my humble opinion. Number 2 is to participate in conversations. So as I mentioned earlier, around the start of the talk, it's important to participate in conversations and to lead conversations, ask questions, even if you are the even if you are the so-called co-founder of the Discord. You should not be afraid to ask questions. You should not be afraid to ask dumb questions, because these questions generate conversations in the server, right? That's why it's important to throw your ego out of the door when you lead a community, because if you don't participate in conversations, if you don't start conversations, paano pa kaya yung mga community members mo na lurkers lang, na hindi talaga nagsisend ng messages sa community, the people who are much more comfortable with just consuming content rather than engaging with people, right? And when it comes to internet communities, I would say that a lot of the people who join communities fit under that demographic, na they just want to watch on the sidelines, want to get value from the server, but not participate, right? And that's completely fine. So the challenge is on the people who are invested in the future of the community to start and participate in these conversations, right? And number three, to just sum up the first 2 points, is to generate value. I know that it sounds very hustly or very Twitter thready na sasabihin mo, you need to generate value. But that's the reality. That's the simple terms. Yun yung pinaka-simple terms that I could say, or I could give advice to other people. The way to grow a community is to generate value, right? The way to communicate, to create a community or to grow a community is to let the members feel invested, let them feel the value that they're getting from the community, and then at some point in time, they will generate value on their own, right? And this is a model that has been existing at least in the Philippine tech community for decades, right? A lot of the OG communities in the tech communities in the Philippines, if you would note this, or if you take a few moments to reflect on the people who talk, who give events for free, for just food for free, you would notice that these are people who have been with the community for years, and these are the people who have gained value from the community and are giving back to the community. Like there are a lot of people in the tech community that have every right to charge tens of thousands of pesos in speaking fees just because they're that good, they're that experienced. Some of these people are based abroad, even like nagsasabay lang sila sa time zone ng Pilipinas, but they're still giving back to the community for free because they were able to gain value from these communities at some point in their lives, and they're giving back, right? And the same logic holds true in internet communities. And I would say that's even easier to generate value in internet communities because you're not restrained to the traditional meetup setting or Facebook group setting. It's a lot more tama ba yung term, ephemeral or whatever. It's a lot more spontaneous, ubiquitous, whatever, yung way to engage with the community when it's when it's an internet community. All right, now this is another topic that is very, very important when it comes to internet communities: handling conflict and creating space for difficult topics. So at Tambayan 404, we take a very, very unique approach to conflict, current events, and difficult topics. And this is something that is still being discussed amongst the admins, if it is still a good idea to keep it in the first place, because it's very controversial and it is personally very draining to manage, to moderate. The idea in Tambayan 404 is that we value the objective discussion of any topic, regardless of how controversial it is. What's important is that you're not a dick, you don't spread hate, or you don't put someone in physical danger, right? So the keywords here is objective discussion of any topic, right? This is not your Facebook comment section. Nasasabihin mo, dilawan ka kasi, ano nga kasi, BBM voter ka kasi, you're less than human or whatever. No, we don't like that. We don't like that in the community. We do not berate people. We do not treat people as if they're dumb because they have certain opinions on certain topics. What we want to see in the community is that we want objective discussion. We want to understand the perspectives of other people. And that's a unique approach that we've taken here in Tambayan 404. And it's definitely something that's very, very hard to manage, right? And these are some of the things that we've learned um, while in this idea that we're testing out in production, essentially. So yeah, in communities, heated arguments are inevitable. There are a lot of people that are very passionate about certain topics, regardless if it's true or not, right? But as a community leader, it is important that you should learn to be comfortable with confrontation in private. And in private is highlighted because you do not want to be the person that publicly puts down people and tells them na parang, oh, don't say that. You don't want to police their tone. You don't want to call them out, especially once you scale your community to hundreds of members. There's nothing more degrading than publicly telling someone to um, to essentially confront them in public na hundreds of people. It is much better to resolve the conflict first in private. Pero if di pa rin sila umayos and they're still instigating, ano yan, suntukan na yan. As a community leader, you should know when to put your foot down as well, right? So in relation to the points that I mentioned earlier, it's very important to have a participatory mindset, but it's also important to know when to put that expert hat on. You need to know when to put your foot down. You need to, for example, if you see a discussion getting kind of heated, you need to know to say, stop, take 10 minutes, step away from the computer, touch grass outside. It's just the internet, right? It's just a discussion. Don't take it too seriously, right? Don't resort to ad hominem attacks, for example, right? Know when to stop a discussion. Tell them, guys, this is getting out of topic and this is getting parang wala nang point yung pinag-uusapan nyo. So please stop. You need to know when to put your foot down, right? You also need to learn to be impartial, and you need to learn how to prevent your politics and personal biases from affecting how you deal with other people, right? Even though, as I mentioned earlier, there's nothing wrong with letting your politics inform the rules and regulations and codes of conduct in a certain community. But if you wanted to also apply the Tambayan 404 model of also allowing very controversial topics to be discussed, then you need to learn to be impartial. You need to learn to not have an opinion on things. You need to learn to not let your politics and your personal opinions, biases from affecting how you perceive a certain person. Because this goes back to the point earlier where they're not violating any rules, diba? So it should be okay. So if something doesn't rub you the right way because of their personal opinions, maybe you should maybe you should talk to them, right? Maybe you should discuss why. Maybe you should understand why, right? So hence why the rules are important to establish at the start. These are the things that will save you when it comes to handling conflict and handling difficult discussions in the community, right? And since you are in the position of a community leader, you should not let your politics and personal biases affect your judgment, right? And to add to that, which I didn't add dyan sa list, you need to be able to have a level mind on things. You need to not make decisions in the heat of the moment. This is why it's important to have a team of admins with you to discuss things, right? Because other people may have different opinions on how things are perceived, right? The challenge with the internet, with chat in particular, it's very hard to detect sarcasm. It's very hard to detect whether or not someone is messing with you, and whether or not someone is genuinely uninformed about a certain thing, right? So as a community leader, it's important for you to account for those people, right? You do not want um, to hate on someone na they're doing something na hindi naman nag-break ng rules, right? It's just that they have different perspectives on things, right? As a community leader, it's okay to not have an opinion on things. And as a general person of the internet, life advice: you do not have to participate in every conversation. You do not have to have an opinion on everything, right? It's perfectly okay to see something in the internet, look at it. If you don't agree, but you don't want to engage, then don't, right? Walang masama dun. It doesn't have to be a competition. It doesn't have to be a pissing contest na kung sinong mas intelligent, sinong mas magaling or something, like because I encourage you to zoom out and think, if are you just saying those things or engaging in that space just to be perceived as someone who has an opinion on things? Is it actually making a real impact, right? Yeah. As a community leader, you should constantly check yourself. You should constantly check if you are breaking your rules, right? Because there are some admins, Discord admins, Discord mods that happen to break a couple of rules, because we are in positions of power, and it's very easy to forget that there are rules that apply to everyone, right? So it's very, 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 very important that you constantly check yourself. That you're not breaking any of the rules, not alienating community members. So always remember that you're building a community, and you're not just there to have a personal group chat or something, right? Yeah, and good points in the chat. It's very important to have other leads that hold you accountable, and even members. And actually, in Tambayan 404, the members tell us whenever we posted in the wrong channel. Like if we accidentally post political content in the general channel, they tell us to post it in the politics channel, essentially, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, you have when you're leading a community, you have to be humble enough to accept that you will make mistakes. You will have bad judgment calls, and it's a thing. It's okay. It's normal. It's part of being human, right? But what's important is that you constantly check yourself. And then, as a community leader, you should also trust your community members to be mature and to not act like children online. So in short, you need to trust your community members. You in Tambayan 404, we're proud to say that we have some sort of a self-policing culture, self-regulating culture in the channel, or rather in the server. So we don't spend as much time monitoring conversations as we did in the start, because to sum up, to add all of the other things that we mentioned earlier, the community members are equally invested in the success of the community, because they give back to the community. Yes, there's trust within the community, and it's important as well na hindi kayo nag-over-police as a community leader, right? You need to trust your community members. You need to trust that they will do the right thing and not act like children in the internet, right? It boils down to building a good culture, to establishing the culture, which is something that you establish by leading through example, which is why it's important to start conversations, to participate in conversations. And yeah, these are the things that could help you handle conflict and create space for difficult topics. And then yeah, so let me kulang ba ako ng slides? Okay, you will see some. Okay. Sige. Di mo na kulang ng slides. Okay. Okay, so here's some of my closing remarks. So it's important to note that community building is a commitment with multiple exclamation points. This is something that is usually not paid and is done for years. I personally have been involved in the Philippine tech community since 2018, right? I've been doing this thing for years. I do not expect anything for payment. I volunteer for free because I want to see everyone succeed. I want to give back to the community because the community gave me the opportunities that I have right now, right? Like, believe it or not, I would not be doing my master's in the first place if it were not for the encouragement of the people in the community, right? Imagine that if I wasn't in the tech community, I wouldn't be in the middle of Europe, freezing my butt off during winter, right? So if you're doing this just for your resume, don't waste people's time and do something else instead, right? So yeah, community building is something that takes time, takes effort. What else should I say for this? It's perfectly fine to build a community for work. Don't get me wrong. Walang masama doon. But just make sure to do it right. Do it with care. Do it with respect to other people. And essentially, the language here is intentionally passive aggressive because we have seen the effect of communities in the tech ecosystem in the Philippines, and this is not meant to gatekeep people from building communities, but rather it's to encourage people to do community building right, because everyone benefits. Yeah, more intentional community building. Actually think about it. Take the time to reflect on why you're doing it, because this is one of the things that is such a big multiplier in the careers and personal lives of people, right? As an example, in Tambayan 404, we received a lot of feedback from people when we celebrated the 1-year anniversary of the community, that, oh, thank you for building the community. It was such a refreshing idea. It was such a very helpful thing for me during the middle of the pandemic. And this is the feedback that actually that was really nice. It really reminded us why we're doing community building in the first place. And yeah, it's a commitment. Next point. Healthy communities have diverse members with different beliefs. Don't create an echo chamber. It's important to cast a wide net because you'll be pleasantly surprised at the people who will participate in your community, right? So it's important to keep an open mind. If you have personal biases about certain people who want to join the community, I don't think you should be in the position to lead the community in the first place if you're like that, because as a community leader, you should not let your biases affect your perception of other people, right? Especially if they have different beliefs, right? Because I believe that everyone, regardless of who they are, have different opinions, different ways of providing value, different ways of participating in the community, right? Like initially in Tambayan 404, we were only focusing on people who worked or are tech enthusiasts, worked in the tech community or are tech enthusiasts, right? And that's a very, very, very specific segment of people. But then we started to be less strict about who wanted to go into community. We started publicly putting our server on Discord server listing sites like Discord or whatever. And basically, we opened up the community. And the effect so far has been good. We have a lot of interesting figures in the community, all with interesting perspectives as well on technology, politics, and essentially they're also capable of participating in the community, right? I don't think you should create an echo chamber. I don't, or whether that's intentional or not, don't create an echo chamber. Make sure you welcome diversity. Um, the thing you have to remember is that diversity is not just where your members are from. Um, it also deals with the perspectives of your members. So, yeah. And yeah, their values, principles, and philosophies are key to creating an inclusive community. And this is the most, I have repeated this again and again during, oh, it's almost been an hour. Yeah, almost been an hour. I've kept repeating that these are very important to create your community. And it all starts with your rules and codes of conduct, because these will help guide you when it comes to making judgment calls in the community, right? If, for example, you do not like people who expose other people's information on the internet, right? Then that principle, that principle or value will help you guide to create a community na inclusive, diverse, and essentially a community where the people are essentially healthy, a healthy community, essentially. And yes, this is my bonus point for the closing remarks. Just because you made a Discord server doesn't mean that you made the community. So it's important to note that Discord is just a tool, and a community is more than the tool, right? So we in Tambayan 404, we only use Discord community as a way to describe ourselves. It's a way of showing that we operate through Discord, right? But we're not just like a Discord server. We don't look at it that way. We think of ourselves as a community, because a community has shared interests, shared values. A community is something that can survive outside of a specific tool, right? Probably not Facebook, because it's not like conducive to creating a community. But let's say if Discord suddenly went down tomorrow because naubos na yung runway nila after so long, right? Then we can try to find another tool, right? Because at its core, the concept of Tambayan 404 is able to be applied in IRC, in a technology that has been existing since the 90s, right? It's just a chat room, a fancy chat room with emojis, with video calling, with voice channels, right? And we believe that even though like if Discord suddenly disappeared, the community will still survive, and it'll still find a way, essentially. Because a community is more than the tool. We just so happen to use Discord because we like using Discord. But yeah, and in fact, there are community members in Tambayan 404 na yung first exposure nila sa Discord was through the server. And that's a really cool thing. And yeah, I guess what I just wanted to say that is, just because you made the server doesn't mean that you make a community, right? And it's important to remember the distinction between just a server with people hanging out and a community that continuously provides value, generates value to each other, right? Like a community can just be four people, right? Four people aligned with shared values, uh, shared insights, shared knowledge, but they're working towards a single thing, right? Or they're advocating for something, or they're essentially creating value, right? But if you are like, if you take those same four people who just congregate in a Discord server every night to play games, like to just hop on voice chat, then I think that's just a Discord server, not like a community in the context that we are talking about communities now, right? And yeah, I think that's the end of my presentation. Thanks for listening. Any questions?
Thank you so much for such a thoughtful talk. Like as a community builder myself, I definitely learned from all these principles, and I can't wait to apply them. So now looking at questions from our audience, the first one I have for you is how has the culture of Tambayan 404 changed from when it first started to where it is now? And also, I invite Chi to answer this also, since she's also a lead of this community. Yeah.
Hello. Okay. But I'll defer to Richard first. But yeah, I'll just be here vibing. Hello.
Okay. So with regards to the culture, I've noticed that hindi na lang siya surface level na discussions, right? I think the biggest thing that's changed in the community is that there are more thoughtful discussions, that there are more discussions that are focused around providing support to each other, asking advice, and yeah, the spirit of Tambayan 404, where we focus on playing games or just discussing about non-work stuff, is still there. It's just that the context of non-work has expanded to not just games, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we started to, or rather we built it to just allow people to have an avenue to, like, oh, because video games was like what other people were using, or what people would normally use Discord for back when, before they rebranded or like updated their brand to what it is now. But then when we noticed that, oh, people were talking about other things, like not necessarily just games, not necessarily just electronics or devices or whatever, people started sharing their food pictures, their pets, memes, and then eventually clothing. Just the topics just kept on, like growing, or just more and more people just felt like, hey, can I talk about this here? So that we just essentially evolved with the community as well, I guess, like based on the feedback. So to echo what Richard also said earlier during his talk, it is participatory, and there is a feedback loop. There's a like direct engagement with the people that you are part of, with the community that you set up. I don't know if
Yeah, like even in like the pingable roles, or
yeah.
in the vanity roles sa server, like nag-release I think last month or 2 months ago yung Back for Blood, the game on PC and consoles, and we had quite a few people who were playing it. So we created a pingable role for everyone who was interested in playing that game. Na para instead of tagging other people who wanted to play, we just tag the role and, hey, anyone want to play, and then we hop on the voice channel for voice
Yeah,
chat, right?
and that got set up because it just kept happening, like, because it just to make it easier for people to be able to convene into one place. And then we would also retire some roles because they were not being used anymore, or just it adjusts. Like nothing is like nothing is always or rather it's not always set in stone. It can always change depending on how people are using it or not using it.
Yeah, and like an example of something new in the server is we finally have a coffee channel. We have
Yeah.
a coffee role, and that's
Yeah.
relatively new. And when we
But
started the
that's
coffee channel, we were surprised na ang daming addict sa kape sa server.
yeah. I mean, it
And
was it was something that has been requested before, but because we felt before it was also not really obvious or not really evident that there were a lot of people, diba? Richard, like when we started, I remember it was being requested in for our Carinderia channel. Like the
Mhm.
Carinderia channel is for the food stuff. But then since we felt like it was too niche of a topic, that it might just die, like the channel might just die if we have it because it's so specific. We decided not to, but then eventually more people kept asking for it. Same thing with our devices channel, and then we eventually had the keyboard specific, mechanical keyboard specific
Yeah,
channel.
and we
Like,
have a K-pop specific channel
yeah.
because of how it was medyo naka-flood na yung isang channel na puro
Yeah.
K-pop. So
Yeah.
we had to create a separate channel.
Yeah, kasi nga, yun nga. So, yun nga. So, it grows as more people just keep on talking about things, as more people interact with other people in the community. Yeah.
Thank you so much. That actually brings me to my next question. Since you guys are almost close to 1K members, congratulations. By the way, I'd like to know, like, how do you keep the culture of this community intact, as it scales? Because I feel like I don't want to drop names, but the bigger the Discord server, I guess the harder it is to find that sense of community. Yeah.
Yeah, in our experience, the most important thing was we're still active. Like the three admins are still pretty much omnipresent across all of the topics. And what's helpful for us is that for us admins of the server, these are all the things that we're all interested in. Like we're interested in let's say cybersecurity, we're interested in personal finance, crypto, we're personally interested in technology, keyboards, anime, music, um, transport, cars, bikes, bicycles. We're all furniture, fashion. We're all equally interested in all of these topics, and I think that's what's keeping the server alive. It's the fact that the people that you can usually perceive as above you are also talking about the same things as you, right? And probably it will get harder to moderate in the future, but that's when you rely on your original community members, and that maybe that's the time when you say, oh, I think we need to hire, or we need to
We
get
need to
another
get more.
moderator.
Yeah.
Yeah, but thankfully we're not at that point yet. We're um actually, according to our stats, half of the members are lurkers anyway. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, that's
And
why I made the point earlier not to focus on the vanity metrics. Not I don't really mind having the 900 members because um the important is that the conversations are still good. The conversations are still quality. Kesa naman yung may mga papasok bigla sa general channel, naghahanap lang ng mga shorty or something or whatever, mga naghahanap ng
yeah.
Discord date or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. And I to echo then what Richard said, that we are active in it. We don't necessarily also have to be, experts in the topics that we do see being brought up. Like for example, in the case of cybersecurity, like we just know that that is something that needs or may come up in conversation because that is something that we all go through, but then we're not really knowledgeable about that. But then other people are. We find out that, oh, someone else is working in infosec, is in very very much interested in like security related things, so they come in and then share that knowledge. And then conversely, in like the other channels, it's just we just keep like we just let people, or we provide people like an avenue for them to be able to just talk to people and talk to other people, share that knowledge. Maybe other people can pick that up. And then you see after a while they come back to it. They go like, "Oh, remember when you shared this, or remember when this got talked about? Oh, I did this." Like there's like a continuation. It gets followed through by the members of the community. So part of it is also just because of the pre-established rules that yun nga, merong level of respect that we expect everyone to give across the board. And if someone shows up that doesn't, like, obviously did not read the rules, or is just um not wala, yeah, I don't wanna swear since this is ano, this is recorded, but just undesirable, like not respecting other people, they're gonna stand out in a not good way. So um yeah, again, we self-regulate, or we self-police, or like we check ourselves, even both like as members and also as moderators or admins. And I think that's also something that really helps in maintaining that culture, even as we grow into like from before we were just celebrating 100 members, and then after that it became 500 members, and then now it's close to 1,000. And I can't even imagine what's gonna happen next. But I know that at least that I can trust me as an admin. I can trust my co-admins and also my community members to be able to uphold that culture. Like just keep on keeping the conversations, things that are not degenerate, or just things that like we get something from it and we have a fun time with it. So yeah. Yeah.
Thank you so much for those answers. I'd also like to ask, since you guys have like years of experience in community building, starting out in in university of your user experience society, I'm just wondering how building organizations and building communities are different and similar. Because on first glance, organization and community can sound like the same thing, but I'm sure it's a very different vibe and context for you.
I would say if you're talking about the context of organizations in like college or something, or like a more formal organization, the difference there between like the difference there is that organizations are a much more professional entity, while communities are much more are less formal, right? In organizations, there is a clear structure of how things are done. You have the president, you have the vice president, you have the EVP of
Officers.
EVP of EVP or whatever. Yeah, and while in communities, it's more of a you have people at the top, but these people are just the people guiding the organization, the community. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah. And for organizations, I think technically I would look at, or I would look at it as organizations are the ones that are formally recognized. There can be some form of registration for it or whatever. I mean, in the context of like Philippine organizations that we have right now, like for example, UXPH is a non-profit organization. Tambayan 404 is an online community. They could operate in the same manner, but then UXPH is the one that's recognized as like this govern, like we have set of officers. It has to be filed and like just do the papers and stuff. So that's how I would generally like look at it. And to echo, like for student organizations, it's kind of the same thing. It's just in a collegiate or the school level. So that's how I would differentiate it.
Yeah, and I would say that, and I would argue that an organization can also be a community. and the community can also be an organization, if that makes
Mm.
sense, right? Like to use the example of UXPH, UXPH, the organization, is the legal entity, is the nonprofit organization registered with the SEC, the organization that organizes big events, conferences. But UXPH, the community, is the one that has conversations within the community. There's people helping each other inside the community. Even like right now, may mga people who
Yeah,
are
meetups.
organizing mini events on their own initiative
Iba.
within the
Yeah.
community, right?
Yeah.
So that I
Not
think that is
meetups pala.
possible.
The meetups are so pre-pandemic ago. But yeah, like the events, the get-togethers, that's part of the community. Then the organization is just on a bigger, wider
More
scale,
formal scale.
formal scale. Yeah.
But yes, they are similar, but the context is different, I would say.
I see, I see. Thank you for this. Another question from our audience. They'd like to know how you, I guess, you'd approach community onboarding, especially since for really new members, like first time users of Discord, it can be pretty overwhelming, especially the number of channels that many servers come to accumulate. How can someone find themselves settled?
In the context of Tambayan 404, we have a channel directory that lists out what each channel is all about, and we don't pressure anyone in participating in any of the channels. Like hindi kami nagpapatama na yung mga lurker dyan dapat magsalita. We don't do that, and that's very key to communicate that you are welcome to the community, but you participate in your own time, right? And I guess this issue is mainly, I believe, in with Discord. Like the design of Discord itself is the issue, because it bombards you with a ton of different ways to grab your attention, right? If the channel is unread, it's highlighted white, and if there's a tag, it's highlighted red. And you also have right next to the channel list is your server list, right? Like my server list right now looks like a mess. Even if I try to organize it with folders, wala.
Yeah. Ang dami pa rin.
So yeah, encouraging users to participate is a tricky thing. And the things that we do is, yun nga, we have a welcome channel in the server. But aside from the bot generated, welcome to Tambayan 404, blah, 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 the one that generates a photo, she is actively tagging the users who come in and saying, "Oh, welcome." Like, back then when I was still in the Philippines, I was also tagging people, telling them, "Oh, welcome to the server," blah blah. And it's really important for people to have, at least in the first few points of contact with the server, na may actual person that talks to them, right? That human connection is very, very important, and it communicates that this is not just an ordinary Discord server or Discord community na run by bots, right? Communicating the human element is very difficult, but we think that it's very worth it at this point in time. Like, maybe if we scale the community to 5,000, 10,000 users, it might not be a sustainable practice anymore, but it's something that we're doing right now, and it's something that we can change in the future. So I would say that there's no single formula in terms of figuring this out. This is something that's unique to the context of your community. Because for some people, the best way for them to participate is to attend an event first, right? Like to listen to a Discord stage, to listen to a live recording of the podcast, or to watch a Tambayan water cooler session, for example. And with my personal observation, there are members who participate only during those sessions, right? Because I guess that's the format that is most comfortable for them, right? So important to offer alternatives as well in terms of engaging with the community.
Yeah. Sorry, to add lang dun sa sinabi ni Richard about like welcoming people, na nakakatawa kasi people assume or people joke tuloy in the channel or in the server na I'm a bot kasi ang bilis ko mag-reply to them. But then it's just because, yun nga, again, I mentioned earlier na perpetually like ano yung omnipresent yung word na ginamit ni Richard earlier, like about with the moderating on all of the channels. But it is important that there is someone that they can talk to, they can ask questions for, and um that could make or break your community. Kasi I've also joined other communities naman, like this, or rather Discord servers that are also like built for certain online communities. And iba talaga yung dating if someone like welcomes you versus you just getting added getting mentioned by a bot, and then after that you're left to fend for yourself, like you have to navigate it by yourself. And then that goes on to the criticism of how Discord is set up and stuff like that. So yun, parang human element, echo na +1, yeah.
Yes, thank you for this. One more question. I'd love to hear from both of you, like maybe one of your like favorite community experiences in Tambayan for like maybe like a hangout you guys had or an activity you all did together. I don't know, that made you feel like, oh, what I'm doing here is fulfilling and I really enjoy it. Yeah, because it's always get burnt out with all the time and effort you commit to the craft. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I have two favorite moments in the server. The first moment is when the conversations that we have in our career channel called Usapang Trabajo has a positive impact on someone. Like time and time again, people have told us that the advice, the insights, and the points that we give on how to negotiate a salary increase, for example, on how to negotiate for more benefits, or how to essentially navigate the job landscape, right? That they felt an actual impact on their career, that they decided to pull the trigger on a certain career decision, right? That's always really nice to hear, especially when it comes from people who are much more senior, who are much more experienced than us. That they tell us, thank you for bringing up for those conversations, because it helped me navigate my job right now. Well, that's like a paraphrase, very paraphrased statement, but that's the gist of some of the stuff that people mention, right? It's very heartwarming for us na nakikita namin na, oh, the stuff that we learned from other people that we essentially just share with other people are also providing value, right? Which is really nice. My other favorite moment is when in our politics channel, when we're able to have a civilized discussion about very controversial topics, especially when it comes to political or religious topics, right? It's always nice to see people converse in a very civilized manner, trying to provide arguments that are backed by scientific journals or evidence that is essentially backed with a reputable source, right? It's always fresh to see someone arguing for a certain thing, or arguing against against a specific thing, and having actual data to back it up, even if I do not necessarily agree with that person. It's always nice to engage in these conversations, because the way I see it is, if I don't engage in these conversations, I run the risk of falling into an echo chamber, right? It's hard to it's very hard to fall into an echo chamber nowadays, right? Considering everything that's happening. And that's why I really appreciate the level of the conversations that we have within that channel. Like if there are certain news articles that are shared there, someone will share the underlying reason why a certain thing is happening. Like they take the time to explain, oh, this is why X and Y is happening, right? And that's one of my favorite moments in the server, definitely.
Okay. For me naman, I will also just refer to the name of the channel is called Doom Scrolling, and that's where we put like all of the warnings there just so that people do know that if they go there, you're just probably gonna be sad or disappointed in the state of the world or the state of the Philippines, depending on where you're coming from, like for the news, because it is current affairs, current like events. But it's also nice that it's become a place or an avenue for people to just raise the questions that they're normally scared to ask or verbalize or talk about in other public avenues. Like technically this the our server is still it is a public server. It is still a public space. But people feel more comfortable to voice out their thoughts, like even if they're not sure, like in the context of like the political aspect, since we have the elections right now, some people would actually just talk about, oh, I've been seeing news about this particular candidate. I'm not sure about their stances on this and that. I was initially leaning towards them, or I kind of want to vote for this person. Like those things, if you talk about that in like Twitter or Facebook or wherever, you will there's a high chance that you can get criticized by other people and attacked by with your person, instead of actually discussing the details of the contents of what you're trying to talk about. Because I don't know, the online spaces have evolved in a way that sometimes it is scary to like voice out concerns, because you might get like dog piled on, or like yeah, parang I don't know what the word. Yung parang biglang mag-overwhelm sila na parang re-reply sa'yo na, bakit yan yung isip mo? Bakit ganyan ka? Tapos i-judge ka na kaagad. Whereas here, we have these conversations where, tama ka, or mali ka, blah 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 blah. Tapos it's held in such a it's just weird that it's refreshing to see people argue, and I'm happy about it. Because it's different to see it here versus if I saw it like online. Like if I saw it like for example on Twitter, my comment would be, ay ang kalat, or my god, ano yung pinag-uusapan nila. But here it's like, okay, nag-away. I saw that there were arguments, but then both would have points, and then both would just, it's just debate. It's just an argument, healthy discussion. It's needed because you don't always know everything, and it's fine to learn something new. What's important is what you do with the information, and you don't have to shut yourself out from these conversations or these topics. Yun, so that's one thing. Pero my personal favorite lang din talaga kasi the things that keep happening in Tambayan 404 is when some random thing just gets talked about, or rather mali. Ito pala, it's like, it's funny if in the Tambayan channel, like our general channel, someone just randomly talks about something. It evolves into like a whole discussion about different things. Either sometimes it breaks down and like it gets brought to different channels, but then sometimes it's really just super random that it keeps staying in that general channel. And then every now and then some of the lurkers come out, or like the occasional like chatters come out and go like, oh, what the hell happened here? It's like, oh no, ang dami kong iba back read. And then people comment like, reading Tambayan 404, like the newspaper online. So like they just they find joy in just reading through the conversations, and that they actually take the time to back read. Like normally if you see 100 like 500 messages since whatever PM or whatever AM, parang you would just mark it as read. Pero sometimes parang people just wanna get in on the like what the conversations are, tapos magre-react din sila to it, and it just continues on growing. And natutuwa ako when that happens, kasi nakakatawa lang din kasi then when it when those things like just pop up, because it's just organic uh parang interaction between people. It's like, oh, you said something funny. Oh, this thing happened to me because you did that something funny thing. I shared this particular aspect to me, and then we got to know each other. We get, yeah, my rapport between the members. Yeah. So yun lang. It's it's nice to just see people converse. I guess.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for sharing everything about this lovely little space you've built within the Filipino tech community. Thank you everyone for going today. Again, you may contact Richard at his email, or you can schedule a mentorship session with him, or I'm sure you'll learn a lot. And join the Discord of course at discord.gg Tambayan 404. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a lovely day.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Uh, mhm.